Hello. Still people are joining. We have about 20 people. So welcome to the Industry 4.04 of the Matchery Programme launch event. I think we can start. I'm Agmon Porat. I'm from the Industry 4.0 Innovation Hub, focused on helping driving innovation both in SMEs, but also innovations in the field of Industry 4.0. Part of a large traditional manufacturer in Israel, so we know a lot of what SMEs and manufacturers are dealing with. We're going to have an interesting talk today. The goal to dive into some of practical aspects that SMEs can implement in their factories. Industry 4.0 is a huge name that combines a lot of trends as we talk. And we're going to have a nice conversation about it. Before that, we would see real use cases of implementing artificial intelligence in factories and integrating robotics. So I invite QSee, AI startup. Let's see if they are here. Yes, I see Danny.
Good morning, everyone.
Danny, can you share your screen?
Yes.
So you have 5 minutes, go ahead.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Danny, I'm Qsys Chief Customer Officer. Let's talk about zero defective manufacturing and a piece of cake, and share with you a little bit about how QSee can help process manufacturers save on their operational costs. The most interesting value proposition that QSee can offer is that we cater the entire supply chain, from the raw material to the end product and beyond. And through this long process or low cycle, many inefficiencies can occur and burden the operating or the operational cost with excessive waste, the need to do rework, product defects, the resulting recalls, excessive energy consumption, and of course, environmental pollution. So QSee technology is called process quality prediction. And what we do is very similar to predicting the outcome of a baking process, a piece of cake. You may be choosing the best ingredients in the market, the sugar, the eggs, the oil, and you can buy the best cooking tools possible, the oven, the mixer. You can even take the local master chef to guide you through the process, but it's going to be extremely challenging to foresee ahead of time that the cake you are baking is going to turn perfect. The perfect height, the perfect texture. Is it going to be identical to the cake we baked an hour ago, a day before, and so on and so forth? That's the essence in the technology that we call process quality prediction. And it actually includes an alert very early in the process. Hey, you are going to have a problem with your cake, a prediction. During the dough stage, you need to take special attention and a prescription telling you what to do in those stages. For example, please add half a spoon of sugar or flour. Please speed up the mixer 10% up, or reduce the temperature, and so on and so forth. We do that by harnessing artificial intelligence technology that caters the entire supply chain data and provides you meaningful insight, eventually to bring you into your desired result. In this case, a perfect cake. You may have heard about other artificial intelligence enabled technologies, and it's very different than the other technologies that are around in this market. For example, predictive maintenance is a great technology that focuses on the well-being of the machine. QSee caters the entire supply chain. The same for the process optimization, or a technology you may heard of, soft sensor, that caters a specific point in the process. Again, the entire supply chain plus a complete root cause analysis. In essence, the technology of QSee is used to reduce the operational expenses, but first and foremost, we need to find what is the the challenge that burdens your operational expenses the most. The technology of QSee meets challenges from the batch and continuous process manufacturing, like pulp and paper, the food, the chemical, building materials, and so on and so forth. And by identifying the challenge, we are able to guide you through very early in the process what you need to do in order to avoid the excessive expenses. It could be deviation from a golden batch recipe and so on and so forth. It's all been digested and been accessible to you by a dashboard, either a mobile or a desktop. We are an Israeli company, part of the LET Lab, Industry Innovation Lab, got a grant from the Israeli chief scientist and partners with an American VC, and have strategic relationship with a Portuguese industrial group called Semapa. I hope I met the time. Any questions are more than be happy to be answered. Thank you for the opportunity and time.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you very much. That's about using AI in manufacturing. And now we'll have Uri Dubin, CEO of QSee, AI for robotics.
Thank you, Agmon. Thank you, everybody. Just before I begin, I will show you something amazing. This is my cup, you see? And I can grab it. It's amazing. We humans do it all the time without thinking. But imagine that you are a robot and you need to grab a cup. It's need to have a sensor that gives you position, orientation of the cup, detects the cup, and then you can do the motion. So we simplify this process, and I'll show you how we do it. So, you know, robotics is a huge hype. It's a huge market, and you hearing about all kind of kitchen robotics, in your house, everywhere. But actually, what is happening today, still all the manufacturing process, most of it done manually. The question is why? And let me show you what is happening. From the very young age, we learn a lot of things, but one of the things we learn is the ability to understand the position of objects in space. The same skill the robot need to have the same kind of capability, because you need to work with objects. Every robot actually works with object. You need to know where the object is. This is how the robot becomes adaptive to changing environment, something that we humans are very good at. There's a lot of actions going on there. Many companies are trying to do this kind of vision problem. And usually they use three basic technology: projecting light, laser, using multiple or moving cameras, and there's different drawbacks like size, precision, distance that can work with. But as you understand, and we can do the experiment right now, you can close one eye and catch an object in front of you. So you don't need a laser, and you can do it with a single sensor. And we mimic this kind of capability. We created a software, we call it Object Shazam. It connects to any camera. It gives you 6 numbers: position, X, Y, Z, and the orientation of the object in space. It can look like this. It's done from the single image. It has a lot of advantages. For example, it can run very fast. We can work with objects which are big and small. Cost, obviously, the factor, because our sensor that they're using, it could be very small as this camera. And it's very easy to use and install. We have a software that's split in 2 parts. One part is a training software, which could be trained from as low as 200, maybe 500 images. And the other part of the software is a inference that runs in real time and gives you numbers, this position of the objects very fast. And we price it differently. But in any case, our solution is much more cheaper than the competing solution for 3D vision. For example, you see on the left the things that the Google are trying to do, creating specific objects that like shoes, detecting shoes. On the right, you can see actually the part from Hamlet that we know how to localize it in space, and we can do it for any objects that you want. It's a basic human capability, so it's applicable to many different directions. For example, navigation in closed spaces. This is how we go from one room to another, manipulating with objects and augmented reality. However, we are right now focused on manufacturing, basically dealing with problems like picking, placing, and also Holy Grail as a bin picking problem. And has a great potential. Our customers, they usually come from robotics manufacturing, sensor manufacturing, and robot integrators. Guys that can bring the robotic solutions, they know how to integrate robots, sensors, and provide the solution for the manufacturing. We are 2 years old company, but we really get progress even this year, previous year, Corona. We have paying customers, huge companies like Whirlpool, Deutsche Telekom. For example, Denso Corporation decided that our technology will be incorporated in their future robot arms, and we are working on this, and many other customers that are in our pipeline. We are very small, as I said. We are our team is PhDs coming from different industries and a lot of experience. The technology that we provide could be used in many different applications. Right now, we are focused on one of them, but in the future, we can see us dealing with many different disciplines. And we right now are looking for investment, and we'll be thankful if we can have an opportunity to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. And this introduction to RobotAI. Let's move forward to a conversation. I'm inviting Nick Hussey to the call. I see you are here as well. Perhaps let's start with a short introduction of yourself, and then we'll move directly. Our goal in this talk is to show examples, talk about examples, what other factories around the world have. We know both in Israel and in the UK, we have a problem that manufacturing is being moved out, especially all the items that need to be dealt with human labor. And there's a huge pressure to increase the yield and output per product and per person. And this whole talk is about how do we drive innovation fast inside the factories. So Nick, how about you start and give us some points?
Good morning. Thanks, Agmon, and good morning, everybody. Nick Hussey. So I'm CEO of a company called Hennick Group. We publish the Manufacturer magazine and organise a series of events and activities around manufacturing in the UK. We've got about 200,000 people in the community who engage with us at various points throughout the year. One of the big things, I suppose, is at the end of each year, November each year, we have the Smart Factory Expo, which is an exhibition that we host up in Liverpool in the UK. And that's all about this new technology, all about the Industry 4 technology. And it's a fantastic event. It'd be fantastic to get as many of the Israeli startup organizations to come along, either to exhibit and show their capabilities, or just to attend and wander around and collaborate and meet people. Regarding Agmon's first question, we've had a hollowing out, as we call it, of the UK SME base and supply chain for many, many years now. This goes way back to, if you take it all the way back to the 70s with the oil price hike, the pound to be incredibly high, and the result of that was that our exports became very, very difficult and very price uncompetitive. And subsequent to that, we had the whole rise of the Chinese and the offshoring and the low-cost economies. I think we're beginning to see the start of a trend for some reshoring or some nearshoring, if you like, so bringing production back to perhaps lower cost economies than the UK, but certainly nearer. And I think COVID actually proved to people just how ridiculous some of those extended supply chains were. And the automotive sector was probably the worst in many examples, where parts were flying around the world on all sorts of transport, ships and boats and planes, and going backwards and forwards between one country and another several different times.
Nick, by the way, you're mentioning those parts. I know that, and I'm sure you see it also in the UK, there was an increase in 3D printing and 3D metal printing, and even the plastic printing to overcome some of those issues of the printing and the logistics. And that's one part that SMEs can use 3D printing very fast.
Well, I think historically SMEs have looked at 3D printing, as have big companies, and seen it as something you do for prototyping and one-offs and things, and that's beginning to change as well. You can now see 3D printing technology as a pure part of the main production process, and that's an increasing trend and a real opportunity for manufacturers to either in-house that particular part, construction of that particular part, or outsource it, but with the help, adding help to their supply chain. So we're seeing that collaboration between, say, a tier one or an OEM talking to their supply chain and helping them. One of the speakers earlier suggested this whole thing, that it's very important that you don't make a mistake with your introduction of new technology, and you make sure you're talking up and down your supply chain or up and down your value curve to make sure that you're in line with what your suppliers and customers are looking for. And that collaboration is really important, and we're seeing that in an increasing trend of bringing part production back, utilizing new technology as a way of becoming much more efficient. And actually the COVID pandemic has also caused companies to really think about their operational efficiency and resilience. So that's another key trend that we've identified.
I want to talk also with you. We mentioned the fact that everybody is trying to improve the yield per product and having less people touching the product, having higher quality, reducing the number of defects. We saw QSee here showing AI for process manufacturing or for discrete manufacturing to predict the quality, to predict defects, to predict the downtime. And we, in terms of areas that companies are implementing, we see AI, we see cobots and robots, we will talk soon. We see varieties of different areas in AI. You mentioned the 3D printing and logistic solutions for marketplace and others. What kind of technologies do you think out of them some of the factories inside the UK can implement relatively fast? Or how do they choose even which projects should they go on for?
That's a really great question. Why or quick win or a relatively low cost entry point is crucial of getting engaged with the technology and to implement a new piece of technology. There's some great work that's been done by the AMRC, one of our sort of technology hubs up in Sheffield, where they've taken some really heritage old equipment, really old, 18th, 19th and 20th century lathes and drives and controls. And what they've done is just put some modern Industry 4 enabled, Wi-Fi tech enabled technology and sensors and cameras on this equipment, and proved to SMEs that for a relatively small cost, you can suddenly get really insightful data. And the way that QSee were talking about this sort of thing is exactly right. It doesn't need to be an enormous upfront revolution. It can be done piecemeal. It can be done on a iterative basis, and it can be done in such a way that you can demonstrate to a board, an investor, a bank, your senior management team, if needs be, that actually you can get a quick win. And we can use that to then prove a point and go further and further. So I think we've got to really try and encourage SMEs to just take that first step, take the plunge, spend a little bit of money and a little bit of time, but suddenly you'll get incredible visualization, incredible reduction in waste or overwork or rework. And I think that'd be crucial.
I think I want to emphasize this and try to remove it, reduce it into a practical action item for the factories. what you can do is start mapping inside the organization who are the individuals that are working there. Usually it's the chief information officer, maybe it's the engineer or the R&D and so on. Map internally who are the people, what are the organizations, what are the action items or that you want to do. Use the AI for improving the flow, using augmented reality, machine tending, which we'll talk soon, right, on robotics. I wonder what kind of items you see in the UK, but machine tending and putting inside the factory is huge. So map down all the projects that you think can be, even though you don't know exactly how to implement a robotic item or AI and so on, and what is going to be the impact for each one of them. This way you can choose a project that even if you get offers from the others, you can already start to calculate its return on investment or choose which project has the highest impact but the lowest cost of entry. And sometimes using AI or putting a cobot inside or using a 3D printer, even if it's a third party use case, can give you huge value and huge test very, very fast. Because you can take data that you already have, send to a company like QSee or to other AI companies, and they would tell you if they can give you value to it or not. So these are practical items that a lot of factories are already doing. And those factories who are not implementing AI on their data or implementing robotics for doing machine tending or assembly or pick and place and others, they would lose a revenue per item to their competitors, which would grow bigger.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think crucially there, you mentioned right at the start, Agmon, that finding the right person in the organization is often a real challenge. And actually unlocking the investment and making a project person. And historically, and I think where many companies are making mistakes is that they're talking to the people perhaps on the production line, the person who bought the last piece of equipment, the person who runs that piece of equipment, the supervisor of that line. And that's the wrong person to talk to nowadays. You need to be talking right at that senior level, because everything needs to be connected to everything else. All the implementation of technology needs to be mapped against your supply chain, both up and down, as one of the speakers mentioned this morning. And making a mistake by buying the wrong piece of kit with the wrong technology that hasn't got future proof, that hasn't got quick ROI, is so easy to do, particularly if you're just talking to the person on a production line and they're buying the same thing they've bought for the last 20, 30 years. Now we're needing much more strategic conversations. So you need to get to the senior people, those who are driving those, or those who should be driving those projects, and understanding that. And that's crucial.
Right, Nico? Maybe we see much more a new role in factory. And I see more and more factories, at least in Israel, that are looking for an integrator, if it's for the robotics or an Industry 4.0. Sometimes it's a position that sits between IT, information technology, and OT. And definitely, maybe it's different inside the organization, and that sounds frightening.
Absolutely right.
Somebody else or not.
We've got fantastic examples. There's a cosmetics manufacturer in the UK called QSee. They're an international business. They had real problems with old inherent systems that they were using. I think it was an old MES or ERP system, and they just couldn't get it to work. And none of the staff that they had, it's a big site, none of the staff they had the skills to do this. They took on a intern graduate, and he managed to re-engineer the code and get it to link with other.
I'm not sure, Nick, if it's your side or if it's.
And it completely changed the way they were looking at the process, how they were undertaking reworking and the code.
Oh, Nick, I think there are some problems on your line. I hope it's not for mine. You see, the other videos are streaming well.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, we can. Internet. Sorry, everybody's at the Zoom now, so Zoom is starting to becoming very crowded as well. But this is another change in the COVID, right? People are forced to move to digital. Sorry.
Yeah, our fifth utility, if you like, our connectivity is still bad. And even in an area like where I am, which is a relatively built-up area, you can still have enormous problems with this technology. That would make such a difference if we could improve 5G and 4G, 5G connectivity.
So you mentioned here also about the 5G. A lot of factories are talking about, and well, the communication companies are pushing it very strongly, the 5G. Many people don't realize the huge value of the 5G in the sense that it's a huge increase in communication data. A lot of factories are trying to connect many of their machines now. Like Nick said before, visualization of the factory, measuring the OEE. These are items that you can do easily, and probably many of your factories are going to move to digital. And then connecting all those machines and data points, usually it's much easier to go to wireless instead of wires and having hundreds and hundreds of wires. 5G allows you to interact with many items and transmit much more data. So I imagine we'll see much more factories becoming much more common. Because the room is going to be closed in 2 minutes, I want to have a short summary. I want to mention one more thing that you can see it even here behind me. We are a valve company, okay, and we moved our valves to become smart valve. We had no idea about how to take one of our company doing metal parts. Just like you guys, I know some of the UK factories would have items that they sell for higher than $100, $500. Putting IoT, connecting them, and moving from selling only a product to start selling a service is something that is worthwhile for you to think. And you see, and it's easier and easier, just like we saw with the example of RobotAI adding a vision to the robotics. So to summarize, there are a variety of technologies that factories can implement. You can integrate, one of the common ones are using AI to improve production, to reduce downtime of the factory, to improve the quality. Another one, and a variety of other stuff. You can predict inventory, you can predict quality issues, you can predict customer issues and others. Robotics for machine tending, for transport of parts, for machine handling, for pick and place, for putting it in a box. Anywhere where your workers touching a product, it's worthwhile to think how you can start automating it, because the prices has dropped significantly, and the complexity also has dropped significantly, and the capabilities of the robotics is just jumping. So AI, robotics, visualization of the factory, and MES, these are very fast solutions that you look in the UK solution, Israel, some of the startups or companies out there, or huge companies, if you want to pay a lot of money for it, you can start connecting your factory and measuring the OEE and other items. I see the message for the breakout is just jumping now. So Nick, I'll give you the 2 minutes to summarize.
Brilliant. Until I get cut off. Fantastic. I think your summary was terrific, Agmon. It really is an opportunity. We are on the cusp of a revolution. Manufacturers got an enormous chance to really change what they do, think really carefully about the value chain and where they're adding value, minimize that waste. In an old style, traditional, lean way, this gives you an incredible chance to really make your factory and your offering, your go-to-market message so much more powerful. So I think there's a huge chance to do this globally, but particularly for UK companies. For SMEs and Israeli startups, I think you've got to be talking to the right people, very quickly try and demonstrate ROI and how easy and simple it is, and set their minds at rest that this is robust, integratable technology that won't take them down a sort of a one-way street. They've got plenty of opportunities for this to work with other technology and collaborate. And I think you'll find that take-up will be very, very strong if you can get that message across.
Good, thank you. So thank you everybody for joining. And I think it's time to go to the main room, right?
Yes, thank you so much. It was really, really inspiring for me. It's kind of a new topic, and I'm really happy to learn. You can actively assign to the main room or wait 18 seconds for Scotty to beam you up to the main room automatically. That's a great feature we are aiming at. So yeah, choose your serve. 5 seconds to go. Thank you all. Thank you, Agmon. Thank you, Nick.